Okay, when I hear the words self-love, I want to throw up in my mouth a little because, I'm thinking of some Brené Brown quote needle pointed onto a pillow or a bunch of people in a drum circle chanting, I'm worthy. I know, cynical New Yorker. But today we're taking self-love out of the woo and putting it directly into the real world of improving your physical, psychological, and spiritual well-being. Stay tuned as I discuss how it's different from self-care, narcissism, and even self-compassion, and my top 5 tips for getting it right. Well, hello, welcome back to the podcast. I'm very happy to have you here. There's just been so much. I took August off mostly from the podcast. I had gotten everything pre-recorded and was ready and really had some time off, and I was thinking of the new season, and a lot of you wrote in, a lot of people wrote in asking questions about self-love, and I had done an episode on it back in 236, which of course I'll link to in the show notes and on my relationship tips and tools, the blog post, the corresponding page on the website. So I'll link to that, or you can look it up on any, wherever you're listening to this podcast. You can just search by that term, self-love, and you'll find the other one, episode, again, 236. But what happened was people had a lot of questions. I thought that was the 5 ways to cultivate self-love, and I am going to give you more tips today, but different ones than I gave last time. So I think the 2 of these together are a knockout punch. I think I'm very proud of them together because I think I'm covering every base. Because people had questions about I still don't understand the difference between self-compassion and self-love and, other things like that. And I'll tell you, my bestie was telling me that her therapist had talked to her about, one of my besties, I should say, was talking to her about self-love versus self-compassion. And anyway, all of that came together, and I thought I have to talk about it today. And, get really clear for everybody and really why it's so important and all the things. So again, you can listen to the old episode coming through today. And I want to say one other thing before we get started, in that, there's, this last year has been a little crazy because I have, or I guess I still have, long COVID. And so I had a lot of plans last year around this time. I was announcing things like I was going to do a membership in January, and my book was coming out, the Boundaries book that's finally coming out now. There was a lot of stuff. And, I couldn't do it. And I just want to kind of say that out loud, that I had to put my health first and really healing and really getting well. And so I have, and I did, and I do feel good, but I don't have the energy I used to have back in the day. I'm also getting old, hey. So I tried YouTube lives this summer, and I really like doing them, but I have to say, even that, I realized it's too much. I do talk to my therapist to get help, and it just was too much to add with how much I do every week. I have my weekly love letter. If you're not signed up for that, you really want to be, because it's kind of awesome. It's probably what I'm even most proud of, even prouder than the podcast. It's just weekly inspiration. I don't send you 100 emails. It's once a week. It's meant to inspire. That's it. It's a little short kind of story, thoughts, whatever, meant to inspire you. So you can sign up on the website under, it says love letter right on the top, right on one of the tabs. You can sign up there. If you don't like it, unsubscribe. There's lots of people on there. I'm not going to notice if you unsubscribe, I promise. There's thousands and thousands of people on there, so don't worry. But people really like it. So talk about some self-love. You could be reading the love letter every week. How is that not self-love? All right, so let's get to it. Let's do it. What is self-love? And again, some of this I covered a little bit in that other episode I mentioned, but I'm really doing things. I made sure I read through that and making sure that this episode is different. It's really different with new information. So obviously what self-love is I might say a few words that were the same, because it is, but in general, I'm talking about different stuff. So when you hear self-love, when I hear that term, again, I'm thinking of someone carrying around a rose quartz crystal amulet and an affirmation book, right? And hey, you might also be thinking of masturbation. I see you snickering, people. I see you right now, self-love. Okay, I see you. It's all right. I have to admit, being, I've thought of it too. And I've gone to both these places many times. when people have talked about self-love. And again, especially when they talk about the difference between self-love and self-compassion. So, and I really want to get clear on all of it. All right. So according to the American Psychological Association, self-love is having regard for your own well-being and contentment. So we're talking here about treating yourself, the same way you would treat other people you love. The Brain and Behavior Research Foundation, and I love this one, defines self-love as any action that supports your physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. So I'm going to give you my own definition in a second, but I would really like you to always think of it that way. And right there, you can tell how it's different than self-compassion. It's a different thing, but I'm going to get into more detail in a minute. So it's any action that supports your physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. Okay. I define self-love as a connection to your inner being. That means being connected to your inner being means you're aligned with what I call source, the universe, your higher self, God, nature. I don't care what you like to call it, but it means really that you're focused sort of inwards, not outwards. And I don't mean that, again, in a selfish way, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but it's really a place of peace and inner knowing. It's when we're in that kind of full alignment where we're able to self-love. We're practicing self-love. We're gentle, we're kind. Most of all, we're patient with ourselves. Okay? That's how I see it. So let me talk about the differences, and I think it's easier to define when we talk about the differences, because it's easy to confuse self-love with a few other things. Most commonly, I would say, one thing people confuse self-love with is narcissism, which makes me a little crazy. Excuse me, because they couldn't be more different. Narcissism is about self-interest and self-absorption. It's fear-based. It involves comparing yourself to others, trying to undermine or beat down other people, and it's all in an effort to make yourself feel superior. It's really focused on other people and everything they're doing, and trying to manage others and their emotions and their actions to make myself feel better if I'm a narcissist, right? But on the other hand, so self-love is love-based, not fear-based. It's a positive, not a negative trait. And it's about authentic appreciation of yourself. There are no comparisons to others. It's inwardly focused on self-awareness and growth, right? It's not outwardly focused on what everybody else is doing. It is inwardly focused. And I don't mean that, again, in a selfish way. I mean that you're looking through your own lens first instead of worrying what everyone else is thinking, instead of being codependent or toxic with other people. You are really self-aware and looking at how you present in this situation. Narcissism is always associated with poor mental health, and self-love is associated just the opposite, with stable, good mental health. Because self-love comes from confidence, and narcissistic behavior, although it looks confident, actually comes from low self-esteem and low confidence. And again, I've done an entire episode on narcissism. I will link to that again in the show notes, or again, you can always search by keyword on my website or on any of the platforms. If you put in narcissism, Abby Medcalf, it'll come up. So I want to say that, but it's so vastly different. And if you listen to the episode on narcissism, you'll see why. And I will tell you this, the research shows that self-love has a positive impact on your well-being and your relationships, whereas the research on narcissism shows it has the opposite effect. It does not have a good effect on your well-being or your relationships, okay? So it's vastly different from narcissism. Self-compassion is the obvious other one, right? So, and again, these two at least are closely related. Self-love and self-compassion are closely linked. But they're also different, and you develop self-love by getting to know and understand yourself. That's really at the core of it. It really starts with self-awareness. Whereas self-compassion is the act of being gentle with yourself sort of after you've made those discoveries. So here I am in self-love. I'm really on this search to get to know myself and who I am and why I do what I do. And in that process, I might find out that, oh my gosh, for me, I found out how controlling I was. Believe it or not, there was a time when I didn't realize I was a controlling, crazy person. I know, shocking, because I am such a one, but it was a blind spot. I thought I was easygoing. I didn't care what others did. I thought I was the opposite, but no. So, and when you find that stuff out, it's like, first of all, I remember being embarrassed. Like I was thinking, oh my God, I really had this aha moment about it. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've been talking to people for all these years in this way. I feel like an idiot, like that I didn't know. I'm sure there was some shame there. Ugh. That's where you need to have I needed to have self-compassion. That, I was doing the best with the tools I had back in the day when I didn't realize I was controlling. And now I have different tools and now I can approach it differently. But it's this sort of patience and kindness around, right? That this different way, this compassion around things you discover. I hope that makes sense. So, and the biggest components of self-love, again, are self-knowledge and self-discovery. That's it. It's again, this quest for physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. We love ourselves and we want to expand. And again, so during those different phases of growth, we will make what we consider mistakes. We'll be imperfect. We'll discover things we don't like, all those. And in these instances, you'd employ self-compassion to move through them and continue growing. Okay? So with self-compassion, you forgive yourself for making mistakes and, you reframe them as learning opportunities or being human or any of that. All right? So different. Okay? So narcissism is different. Self-compassion is different. And self-care. Self-care is often confused with self-love. And self-care is certainly, I'm sorry, I gotta get my hair is like in my mouth. Self-care is, if you're watching me on YouTube, you're laughing right now. If you're not watching me on YouTube, I want you to. We are just about at 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. If everyone listening even just subscribe to my channel on YouTube, why wouldn't you want to, even if you don't go look? That would really help. Again, it's just the way that the algorithms love things and they boost things, and it's fabulous. It really helps us create more world peace, one relationship at a time. People get the good information. They get research-based stuff. Who doesn't want to help? You do, so help. Okay. Hey, and if you are watching me there, give a little like, make a comment, say hi, tell me how much you love my shirt. I don't know, something. Not something mean. Don't be mean. We don't need any haters on there. Okay. Because it's self-love. Number 3, how is it different from self-care? Self-care is certainly a component of self-love, right? It's a component of self-love, but it's more of the operation than the feeling. I'm hopefully going to make this really clear. So with self-care, you might take, nightly baths, you might get regular massages, manicures, or make sure you get enough sleep. And these can all be signs of self-love. But self-love itself goes deeper, as again, you're in this process of self-knowledge and self-discovery. I'm not in a process of self-knowledge and self-discovery when I'm getting a manicure. That's not what's happening there. It's self-care, but it is not, and it can feel like self-love if I'm doing it, right? So, okay. So as you're in that process of self-love, you might recognize that you never take care of yourself. Right? So I'm in this process of self-awareness, and I realize in self-knowledge that, oh my gosh, I never take time out for myself. So then I might commit to self-care, like a weekly pedicure or something. Right? So do you see how so they can go together. So now I'm doing this weekly pedicure, which is an expression of my self-love, but it's different. It's the self-care. Okay? So I want you to think of self-love as maybe a daily activity for self-care, like you would, brush your teeth or keep yourself hydrated. Self-care is really something you do throughout the day by checking in with yourself, by, paying attention to how you feel, having nurturing, healthy habits to feel serene and at ease. And I really think, and self-love again is, it's the big verb. It's the overarching piece. So why is self-love hard? Again, I spoke about this on the other episode, but I'm going to add some different ones here. So, some overlap and some are different. It's hard for a lot of reasons. The most obvious is it's what we're taught. It's what's modeled for us as kids. I talk a lot about, what happened to you in your childhood and how that might have been modeled or talked about in your home. And again, likely in your home, if you were doing something that was self-love, right? That was like something you needed. Like maybe you had a parent. Oh, I just had this the other day. One of my clients has two children, and they went to someone's birthday party, a family birthday party. And there was like Uncle Harry there, and the kids were with my client's mother, the kid's grandmother. And the mother said to the kids, you need to, hug Uncle Harry, give him a big hug, right? And Uncle Harry, by the way, smokes like a chimney and doesn't smell good. And, is kind of that typical crazy uncle, single, bachelor, whatever. And my client was watching, and the kids they said, no, we don't want to. And they're like 4 or 5. And the grandmother got really upset. Their grandmother got upset. My client's mother got upset and said, you need to hug him. And so they did. And then they kind of recoiled because he stank. They weren't used to cigarette smoke. The Europeans listening are like, what are you talking about? But I'm just saying, And anyway, a whole fight ensued between my client and her mom and all that. But that's a good example of, you might have been taught as a kid that when you were told to do something, you just had to do it, whether you felt it was good for you or not. God forbid that leaked over into sexual abuse or trauma or something else, someone fondling you or something weird happening, being put in an unsafe situation. But that, when I grew up, it was the same way. Like, you just did what the adults said. You couldn't question it. You couldn't sort of say what you might want. And it's not that our parents are all cruel. They think it's right. And this is what you're supposed to do. And you're just supposed to do it. Because other people's feelings, Uncle Harry's feelings, are more important than some little kid's feelings. That's kind of the way it was. And this is the right thing to do. You greet them by hugging them, even though you've never met this man. And there wasn't much thought about kids. So anyway, but do you see? So you could have been taught a lot of things as a kid, and that was modeled for you. And so now self-love, you're like, what? I'm supposed to think of my own needs or what I need or what I want. I'm supposed to be aligned with my inner self. Like, what are you talking about, Abby? Like, this is gibberish to me. And that could be why. Another reason it's hard is because of something I just said. We confuse it with narcissism and selfishness. We have these faulty beliefs, again, often from childhood. So we think that self-love somehow means that we're being selfish, self-indulgent, narcissistic. And actually, my client that I just mentioned, her mother was saying to her, you're raising these selfish, entitled little children. I'm embarrassed that these are my grandchildren. I mean, it was a bad fight. It was a bad fight because that's how this mother saw it, this grandmother saw it. But you can imagine my client, going through the years with that messaging over and over, that anytime you think of yourself also, not even first, just also, it is seen as selfish or narcissistic or indulgent or any of those things. And that happens a lot, and that can be why self-love is so hard. And again, self-love is built on self-awareness. It's built on a realistic understanding of ourselves. And narcissists aren't at all self-aware. Self-love, again, it's not feeling self-important. It's feeling as important as everyone else. Ooh, I said that well. Self-love isn't, let's say it again, isn't feeling self-important. It's feeling as important as everyone else. That's a good one. Come on. Put that on a bumper sticker, someone. Make some money. Send me some proceeds. Okay. The other reason it's hard, we think if we say, something positive about ourselves, other people will think we're arrogant or self-absorbed. It's kind of related to that. I know I've shared this before, in my family growing up, my little, Eastern European parents, the heritage was that you don't toot your own horn. And even if someone did compliment you, there was a lot of like you weren't supposed to shine because somebody might take you away. And in their histories, the Cossacks came in and took you. So, it's not like that wasn't founded on something real, but, we're in America now that the Cossacks aren't marching. So, it just gets lost. Like there's these ideas about that you should, oh, no, she didn't do that well, or it wasn't that special. Things would be sort of downplayed. And so it's really hard to find your esteem, your inner validation. It's hard to find those things in that kind of environment where you're told to never even, God forbid you mentioned it. God forbid you mentioned something that was good. You were just seen. It was horrifying. So, yeah, there you go. Okay. And obviously self-love can be hard because of, again, a past history of trauma or abuse or neglect, because you feel unlovable at some deep cellular level, right? And then I would say the last thing why it's hard for self-love is perfectionism. And again, I did an entire episode on perfectionism, and actually what the differences are. There's different kinds of perfectionism. You should go back and listen to that. And perfectionism really gets in the way of self-love because if you're always trying to be perfect, which is unachievable, it's unachievable. Can't be perfect. There is no way to consistently be perfect. I don't even know what perfect is, but you can't do it every time. And so, of course, anytime you don't, you beat the crap out of yourself. So self-love becomes really hard because the occasional times maybe you are perfect or what you deem as perfect are going to be washed away with and discounted and dismissed with all the majority of the times that you're not perfect because, again, it's an unattainable goal. So, self-love goes out the window. Okay. All right. So let's talk about tips. And again, I had 5. It's like the 5 ways to cultivate self-love was the other podcast, 236, sorry, not 136, 236. And now I'm going to do these new five other tips because that's how much I love you. And again, you guys had a lot of questions, so I want to get really granular on what you can do. I think some of my other tips before were bigger, like, you got to have good boundaries. Boundaries always are the answer to everything. Self-love, self-esteem, self-compassion. Have a boundary. Again, my book's coming out soon. I'll help you with that. And I talk about boundaries in the other one, but I mention it as something you need. I don't go nitty gritty. So the tools today, a lot of them get few of them get very nitty gritty. Okay. So what are the tips? Here we go. And if you don't have a pen handy, again, go to the website later, go to the relationship tips and tools, and a whole blog is there. And it's not a transcript. It is a blog. It's an actual written, blog, which means, and all the tips are there. You just copy and paste them somewhere. How do you like that? Okay. Because I love you. Who loves you? I do. So, and self-love, I want to remind you, is a skill. And like any other skill, it takes practice. It takes attention. It takes prioritization if you want to get good at it. So, that I think that's the most important takeaway. But okay, so here are my 5 now, additional 5. So really you'll have 10 if you go back and listen to the other 5. Tip number 1 is to start a relationship with yourself. And I talked in the last episode about self-awareness, which I'm talking about here too, but I want you to think of it differently. I want you to think of starting a relationship with yourself, literally. And just like you would start a relationship with someone new that you just met, self-love really starts with getting to know yourself and thinking of it, again, in the same way you would think about if you were meeting someone new for the first time at work or on a friendship basis or romantic, on a date. Think of getting to know yourself now, like starting a new relationship like that. Do your best to start with a clean slate. Have open curiosity, as I hope you do when you're meeting others for the first time. All your judgments and stuff, you really, you're trying not to have them all there. You're just meeting this person. You're just getting to know them. You're trying not to have a lot of, preconceived notions. So, and there are many ways to get to know yourself better. So let's get nitty gritty. And I also have a previous episode on, I think it's the 4 ways to be more self-aware. Again, it'll be linked in the show notes, or you can search by topic on my website. But you can get more there on being self-aware. There's a timeline exercise, there's all kinds of things, but I'm going to give you other things right now. But the biggie there is the simplest, most nitty-gritty thing you can do is ask others you trust for honest feedback about your strengths and limitations. You can make up a little questionnaire and send it to people. I've done it with clients. I've made little questionnaires and I've picked like 10, 15 past clients and I've sent it to them. I do this probably every couple years. I try to do it every year actually, but it's probably every couple years if I'm being honest. And I ask for honest feedback, like, hey, what was the best thing about working with me? What were challenges about working with me? Just to get some feedback about what that is, what was good and what could I maybe improve to be better in the future. So, and you got to ask the questions because you're looking to further your understanding of yourself. You have to listen like you're wrong, like I always say, and you have to allow these ideas in with open curiosity. So sometimes people say things to me I don't like. I'm like, ugh, I talked too fast, or maybe I interrupted them or talked over them. Hard to believe, isn't it? Because I'm such a wallflower. But it happens. I try to be very, I really do my work and I sit before every session and I set intention and I settle myself and I do just about a 1 minute kind of centering, quieting of myself to be aware not to overtalk, because if I'm talking, you're not in a session, right? Although I do my sessions a little differently where there's more education than a typical therapist. But having said that, I have to hear that feedback when I haven't done it, and I have to listen without shame or judgment. I have to hear that and not beat up on myself after and not feel, because it's that shame that takes you out, right? Oh God, it's so embarrassing. And they think this, and it's like and I'm telling you, my clients overwhelmingly sort of love the work we do together and they make incredible progress. But here I am forgetting that. And they're telling me, like, some of them have said, everything's great. No, you were the best. And I'm like, no, there had to be something, give me more. And they'll finally say something when I pull the teeth. And they'll say something like that maybe. And I'm just devastated. I mean, I'm not with them, but I notice the devastation and I have to stop. It's like, no, this is really good information. I love this person for being honest with me. Now we have a real relationship that's deepening because of the level of trust we're creating here. And this is good. So, if you can get there, you're in good stead. So get rid of the shame and judgment. And you can decide later if there's anything you want to change. Some people... it's funny, I get comments, of course, on these videos, on these episodes, and I love it. People say, you talk too much about whatever before you start really diving into the topic. And I always respond like, oh, sounds like we're not a good fit. You should probably go somewhere else. I'm not changing that. Some people, oh, you're rambling too much. I'm not changing that. This is how I do the podcast. And if you don't like it, don't listen. But this is me doing it, giving you everything I can give you. And that's how it is. So I ask you to accept me like I'm accepting you. I'm not perfect. There's impossible for the tens of thousands of people who are listening to the podcast for every single one to think, oh my God, that was perfect for me. That's not possible. So it's okay. I can only be me. And it took a while doing the podcast. I used to try to change what I was doing. In the beginning, everyone was saying you have to do more interviews. I was trying to, very early in the podcast, I have some interviews with people. I don't know. It's not my jam. And I have done some more recently, like in the last year of the podcast. I do probably 1 or 2 a year. And I do enjoy them, but I really do very few. And because I have a certain criteria of who needs to be on the podcast. I get asked all the time. Trust me, I get 5 or 6 emails a week of people asking to be on the podcast, to tout their book or their whatever. And I would certainly have a bigger social media following and all the things if I did that. I would, they've offered me money, they've offered me all kinds of things, but my relationship with you says that I don't do that. We have a relationship based on integrity and love, and I do not do things like that with you. If I think it is in your best interest, I have a person on. If I think this is something that I don't really know, the last person I interviewed was Tess Brigham about the quarter life crisis. That is not my specialty. And I could go look it up and I could do all the things, but here's this person I really know and trust, and she does happen to be a friend and a colleague. But I have had like Brian Tracy on, he's very famous, his Tiny Habits book, and I just things that I felt like I could never say this as well as them, and so let me invite them on. But other than that, I don't. And there you go. And I'm not saying that, I don't know, that things might not change in the future, but no, I can say that. It's not going to change in the future in that way. But anyway, there it is. Sorry. That's it. Well, I'm not sorry. See, I just said, I'm me. Here you go. So the other ways of really getting to know yourself and having this relationship with yourself, and I can't say this enough, is to meditate. You got to start meditating. I did a whole episode on it. I have a free meditation starter kit. I have a meditation album, Learn to Meditate in 15 Minutes in 15 Days, that you can buy. It's like $11.11 because I think I'm cute. Please, it's very inexpensive and you can learn to meditate. Like all the apps, Calm, Headspace, I use Insight Timer a lot. They all have little learn to meditate programs. I mean, my gosh, people, there couldn't be more resources. And to talk about getting deep with yourself and learning to know yourself and being still with yourself, it goes a long way. The other thing I would really highly recommend is to start a journaling practice, but with this idea of starting a new relationship with yourself. So think about that. What are the questions you would ask someone else? Like, hey, how was growing up for you? Tell me about your childhood. You would actually use these questions in certain ways for yourself to get to know yourself and what you know. You think you know, but when you journal, it often goes a little deeper. So it's not just journaling like I had a good day and I don't know, it's really journaling with a purpose of developing this relationship. So I'm going to have a list of journaling prompts that you can download from the website, from the show notes page or the blog post page. I'll have a list of journaling prompts for you that you can start with. There's a bunch of them. So you can start with those. But, it's really things like the prompts mean that it's something that gets you to start writing. And I did an entire episode on journaling, which you can also listen to, and where you can also download those same prompts if you want. You can get them there or you can come on this one. Being in a romantic relationship means, and then just write for 10 minutes, see what happens, 15 minutes. You don't have to write for an hour. I feel most secure when. Write about that. You'll get some major stuff if you write about that. I feel joy when. I would tell my 8-year-old self, ... Love means ... Being in love means ... Right? These are all things. And again, you can download the prompts. You can listen to those. You can go online and look for prompts. But again, I want you to use the prompts. I don't want you to just journal my day was great. I went to work. I had a cup of coffee. That's useless to me. But this is really getting to know yourself. I shouldn't say that's useless. If it's useful for you, sorry. If it's useful for you, God bless you. Keep doing it. But for self-awareness, it's not going to get you where I want you to go. All right. Tip number 2 is to build self-care routines. I did a whole episode on self-care, what self-care really is and all that. But so you can go listen to that. But I think you can, I think the thing you really want to do for self-care, as far as I'm concerned, is to have a morning routine at least 5 days per week. I don't care if it's an hour of power. I don't care if it's 5 or 10 minutes, but I want you to take that time before you check your phone, before you speak to other people, to set your tone for the day, right? To set your tone for the day. I go deep. I have a step-by-step guide for starting your day right. Again, go listen. 200 and whatever episodes in, I got a lot of good stuff out there. And if you're not listening to it, I'm directing you now. So if this all sounds good, go back and listen and make it your homework this week to wake up 15 minutes earlier. And if you don't want to listen to the episode because you think it's too long, you can, number one, listen on 1.5 speed, or again, you can go to the corresponding blog post and read it in 10 minutes, instead of listening maybe for 45 minutes or an hour on the podcast, if you want to do it like as homework and want to sort of get through it. So go get, again, I'll link to it, or you can search for my step-by-step guide to starting your day right, whatever it is, but follow those guidelines if you're not sure where to start, and start having a morning routine. And also think of other things you can build in, again, consistent routines, a weekly yoga class, a once a month book club, locking yourself in your bedroom for uninterrupted time once a week. Whatever works for you to support, again, your physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. I've shared before that when I get home from work, I go right into my bedroom, and everyone knows not to follow me in there, and I close the door. And I change out of my, I have pretty dressy work clothes, and I don't want to cook dinner in them, and so I change out of my work clothes, and I wash all the makeup off my face. And I put on all my lotions and special things because I'm old and need all these things on my face to try to look half decent. I can't really do Botox. I've tried it a few times over the years, but the problem is I need to have full expression when I'm talking to clients. And, I can't be on like talking like this because I can't, really move my lips, which would be nice because I wouldn't have these cigarette lines all over my lips. But then, you wouldn't get the full Abby thing, right? So I've had to wrestle with that. But anyway, so I have to do other things. So I do. I have these little LED masks. I don't know if they're LED, but I have these little special face masks I put on for 10 minutes. I do all this crap. And that is my little self-care routine. And it really helps me transition into home. It helps me, the whole thing takes like 20 minutes. It doesn't take that long. It really doesn't. Like 20 minutes if I do the mask thing, which is 10 minutes. How long does it take you to wash your face and put on your thing? It's not that long. Change my clothes. Put on a pair of jeans and a shirt I don't care about as much, right? Get comfy. And then I go out and I see everybody. And I just feel I've transitioned. That is really a great self-care routine. And that is self-love. That I put myself first when I come home. I love all these people. These are my favorite people in the world who are sitting in my house, right? But I need to be for me too, so I can be fully for them. And that's how it works. Because if I wait till right before I go to bed to wash my face, if everything else is a priority before that, guess what's going to happen? Yeah, it's not going to happen. I'm too tired right before I go to bed. I don't want to wash my face. I don't want to put on all the special little solutions and lotions and whatever. And I will tell you, I've been doing this since the kids were really little. Even when I felt like I had no time, I've been doing it. And sometimes the kids were in the room with me when they were babies, right? I got older kids now, but I made it, I saw that it worked and I made it a priority. That's self-love. Okay. Tip number 3, and I've talked about this on other podcasts, but you got to accept compliments. This is a great way to build self-love. Don't dismiss compliments or positive feedback. Instead, and here's what I want you to do. This is real. It's from the research. It's from everything. This is what works. You put one hand over your heart. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see me do it. You put one hand over your heart when someone gives you a compliment. You make direct eye contact. Don't look down. Direct eye contact. Just take that breath and say thank you. It is a game changer. Thank you. And there's something with putting the hand over your heart like that like brings it in. I'm not a woo girl, and yet it friggin' works, and it's amazing, and that's all I can say. That's all I can say. It really works. It really makes a difference, and just start doing that this week. Start allowing it. It's such a good thing. Tip number 4, note what you put in your body and mind. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm coming for you. Yeah. Self-love, you have to pay attention to what you put into your body and into your mind. So obviously this includes drugs and alcohol and food, but it also includes people. People. That could be having sex with someone. That's literally being put into you if you're female or if you're male. Hey, everyone can do it. It is literally bringing people into your space like that, but it's also just, physically being in the space with people who bring you down. Think about, again, what you consume, TV, news, the shows you're watching. Think about social media. Research has shown over and over that we make way too many comparisons when we're on social media, and that results in lower self-esteem and obviously self-love. So limiting time on social media is shown to lessen feelings of depression, anxiety, loneliness. So at the very least, the research shows that you should limit social media to less than 30 minutes per day. So again, really be aware. And I'll as always, I linked all the research in the relationship tips and tools on the blog. So if you don't believe me, you can go look it up yourself. But I'm telling you, there's a ton of it about this. So really think about what you're bringing in. That, don't judge it. Don't get crazy with yourself. Don't overly focus on food if you're overweight. Give yourself a little break. Maybe try other things that are easier for you to think about first. Build up your confidence a little bit with other things, but really think about it. I stopped reading. I used to love horror books when I was younger. Loved them. Anything Stephen King, everybody. I love these books. It's all I read. It's all I consumed. It's the only kind of movies I watched. And I really, had to come to Jesus about that. Well, it wasn't Jesus. It was Guru Mai from the City Yoga tradition. But she's a leader in the City Yoga religion. But she had a book called The Yoga of Discipline. Anyway, she talked about just sort of the, being disciplined about what you bring in. And I stopped doing that. I stopped having horror all the time. Just that was all I was consuming that way. And it really did change how I felt day to day. And so think about that. All right. And my final tip, and this is a good, you're going to not like this one. I'm just telling you right now, because whenever I give it to my clients, they're like, oh, I hate this. I hated it too when it was first given to me. And you're like, why are you telling us, Abby? Because it's very effective. It's very effective, this tip. So, and it's called the mirror exercise. And I'd like you to at least try it. So it's based on the work of Louise Hay, and she is one of the original founders of the self-help movement. If you don't know about Hay House, and probably every self-help book you've ever read was published at the Hay House. Not mine, but many others. She died recently, actually, a few years ago. Amazing, incredible, phenomenal woman. And she has multiple books and workbooks on this subject of self-love. So if you'd like to delve deeper, she has it's like a New York Times #1 bestseller called You Can Heal Your Life. Go read that as a starter. I would say that's your Louise Hay starter kit. But this mirror exercise, I think it's a therapist who gave it to me that she originally got from Louise. Okay. So, because I don't think I would have done this voluntarily. I'm going to admit it. There you go. See, we're having a real relationship here. I'm admitting I would not have tried this on my own without a therapist going, did you do it? Did you do it? So mirror work is all about really learning self-love. It's about seeing yourself as worthy of love so you can, again, raise your self-esteem, raise your self-confidence, strengthen your relationships, the one with yourself, the one with others, all of it. And the core of it is basically saying positive affirmations to yourself out loud while you're looking in a mirror. And I know some of you right now, you're throwing up in your mouths. I know. I see you. I was too. But I've got to tell you, it really works. It's not as ridiculous as you think. So let me really explain it. It's the repetitive nature of these. You can think of it as a mantra, an affirmation. It really trains your mind. So that harsh inner critic you have, instead of that, there's compassion and there's kindness. So, basically you're facing your demons of self-criticism with love and gentleness. So it is a powerful exercise and makes most people, again, very uncomfortable initially. I will tell you, if you have been diagnosed with body dysmorphic disorder, I would not do this without first speaking to your specialist about it, someone who specializes in body dysmorphic disorder. And if you have it and you're not seeing someone who specializes, hello, I'd like you to. And so I will say that, okay? But people who suffer from that are very, very few and far between. So the I know you're thinking, oh, that's me, I get out. No, the vast majority of you should be doing this. So, and think about it, right? The fact that it makes you uncomfortable should tell you something about why it's so good, why it's so effective. Otherwise, it shouldn't be hard. So over time, it does become easier. I will tell you that. And even a little joyful. I've had clients tell me that. I don't know that I find it ever joyful. I'm just being brutal, I hate brutal, I hate saying that. Never mind. I'm being very honest right now. But anyway, so I suggest doing the mirror exercise in the morning and maybe again sometime in the evening for at least a week. Okay, optimal would be 30 days. If you can give me 30 days, God bless you. You're amazing. You're a warrior. You're incredible. You are changing your life. But if you can do a week, that would be incredible. And if you're going to only do a week, do twice a day. Okay, so again, when you come, and it is when I do it, by the way, when I'm doing it, and I do it periodically now, I will do it during that evening, taking off my makeup time. I'll do it then. So, but otherwise, I do it right after I brush my teeth in the morning, or even as I'm brushing my teeth. I'm standing there staring at myself anyway. Might as well, right? So here's how you do it. I'm going to be very granular. I like to be very specific. So you find a private place where you'll have 3 to 5 minutes of uninterrupted time. That's all it takes. It's like 3 to 5 minutes, okay? Even 3 minutes, really, probably in the beginning. And you want to stand or sit in front of the mirror, but you want to be pretty close. I would say 2 to 3 feet. So don't stand way back. You have to really be able to see yourself. You're going to take a deep breath, in through your nose. Very, very slow exhale out your mouth as slow as you can, in through the nose, nice and deep as you can. Slow exhale out of your mouth as slow as you can. And then just roll your shoulders, just sort of tuck your chins. You're just trying to be in straight alignment, and you're trying to just relax yourself, okay? And now you're going to look directly into your eyes. So you're looking in the mirror, you're looking directly in your eyes. And now you want to say, I love you. I really, really love you. 3 times slowly, okay? Adding your name is the best. I love you, Abby. Jack, I love you, right? Is really the best. And you want to say that 3 times and just give yourself a minute just to keep staring. I set the alarm when I set the timer on my phone when I do this. I just set a timer for 3 minutes or 5 minutes, depending on how long I think I can last. And I just do it for that period of time. I say it a few times. I give myself a little rest. I come back. I say it again. I try to say it differently every time if I can. And I will tell you this. If starting with I love you is just too much, try something else. Anything else. I could look in the mirror and say, Abby, I'm willing to learn to like you. I'm willing to learn to find self-love. I'm willing to create a safe space for us, for you and me, for you and me, like we're together, right? If Jack is doing it, I made up Jack before. Jack might say, Jack, you're worthy of being loved for who you are. Jack, you're not perfect, but you deserve, but you're mine, and you deserve to have great love. Abby, I forgive you. Right? You might start with other things. Use your own words. Find something you can say without flinching. I should say without flinching too much, probably. Right? And you want to repeat the mantras in 3s over and over with little breaks in between, again, for at least 3 minutes. And I'm telling you, it's great stuff. When you're doing mirror work, you're developing a whole relationship with yourself. The more you do, the better. If you're up for it, check in with yourself in the mirror, throughout the day. It can be, I do it in a very light and joyful way. Like if I'm washing my hands after I pee and I go to the bathroom, I'll often try to look in the mirror and go, looking good, girl. Holding it up for the old folks. All right. I'll just, way to go with, finishing the podcast today. Way to go, closing that big deal, right? Anything. How are you? You can just do a simple, I'm here for you. Abby, I'm here for you. I am here for you, right? Any of those will get the job done. Okay, I do have a bunch of other little bullet points on other ways to show self-love. I'm not going to read them all. You can go, again, to the website, to the relationship tips and tools. They'll all be there at the very end here. And you can see other things if you're not sure, But again, if you listen to the other episode, in this episode, you're going to have a ton of tips. You're going to have a ton of ways to do it, a ton of ways to talk to yourself about why it's so important. And, start having some self-love and not just focusing on the self-compassion, really focusing on the self-love first, which will help you be more compassionate down the road and really help you build all of that. Okay? Woo! That is it for this week. As always, love being here with you. So appreciate our time together. So appreciate all the comments that you leave on, the positive comments on the videos and the emails that I get from you saying what's helping. It really makes this relationship always feel like it's growing and feel so important to me. When I took that month off, I missed you. I really missed you. I'm not going to cry today. I'm getting close, but I'm not going to cry today. I did. I really missed being connected in this way. So thank you for being part of my life and encouraging this relationship and being part of it. I'm deeply appreciative. All right. I love you so much. If no one else tells you, have an amazing week and focus on some self-love.